Hello guys, it's WezTZK and today we're going to be ranking every Killing Floor 2 DLC weapon from worst to best. Now how this is going to work, I'm going to be judging these on 5 sections. The practicality, how useful is it in battle, boss killer, how good it is at killing bosses, save me weapon, how can it actually save you in a bad spot or not, trash clearer, how good is it at killing small and medium Zeds? And finally, large Zed killer, how good it is at killing fleshbound and Skrakes. So without further ado, let's get into it. So number 24, last but not least, is the Reducto Ray. I mean, this gun is very impractical. It takes far too long to actually kill anything. It's not really a boss killer either. All it does is shrink the bosses down, makes it even more annoying to hit them. Not really a save me weapon either because it takes too long to kill. And it's not really a large Zed killer either because the shrink just takes far too long to take effect. Not to mention you also burn through ammo really quickly with the Reducto Ray. It takes far too long to kill anything. But it is pretty good with clots and just general trash Zeds, so I suppose that's something. Coming in number 23 is the Doshin gun. Again, this is in the same boat as the Reducto Ray. Not very practical, it's a bit slow at firing, the Doshin gun. It also has a very small magazine size. I wouldn't really use it as a boss killer unless you have a lot of money. It's not really a save me weapon either because again it does fire really slowly. Although it is good at killing trash Zeds, I suppose. That's really the only good thing about it. It does kill him faster than the Reducto Ray in my opinion, which is why it is a lot higher. But just like the Reducto Ray, it can't kill large Zeds, so don't even try. Number 22, the Sentinel. This is really good at holding areas, which makes it very practical for holding out on maps. And it's also really good trash clear as well. It can basically gun down Zeds really quickly, especially the smaller ones. However, with the larger Zeds, you will start enraging them because it's not very good with larger Zeds. It'd probably be the most effective with the Skrake, but then again there is better weapons you can use. Bosses it's not very good with either. I mean, it used to be really good with bosses until they patched it where you can't spawn more than one. And it's also not really a save me weapon because it runs out of ammo eventually. But it does explode when it runs out of ammo, but it doesn't really have that big of an explosive radius, so it can't really save you. Number 21, the Mine Reconstructor. It is a pretty good save me weapon, the Mine Reconstructor. You can basically self-heal with it as well, and it's really good for clearing out trash Zeds. However, it's not really a very good large Zed killer. It just takes far too long to actually kill anything. Not really very practical either, because although it is a good trash clearing weapon, Medic has better weapons like the 401 which does like better job. And it's also not great at large Zeds and bosses, whereas Medic has things like the Hemogoblin and the 301 which basically do better with larger Zeds. So there is always a Medic weapon that does better in every department. So the Mine Reconstructor is a bit useless really. Next up is the minigun, coming at number 20. It is a really good boss weapon. I actually used this on the Patriarch and it actually ripped through his health, which is quite good. And it is pretty good at killing trash Zeds as well. It's just good for clearing groups of them. However, it's not really very good with large Zeds. The minigun is alright with Skrakes, but then again you've got assault rifles, which do a better job in my opinion, because you can move quicker with them. Practicality, it's just not very practical. The minigun is expensive, it weighs a lot, the ammo is expensive. It's just expensive and heavy, which just slows you down in combat. Whereas you have LMGs and assault rifles that are just better. It's also not really a save me weapon either, because you have to basically spin the barrel before you shoot it. So there is a bit of a delay. If you end up getting stuck in a corner, you have to basically spin up the barrel and try and get out, which isn't very good. Number 19, the Z Mark III. This is a really good large Zed killer. It basically shoots like a random rocket, which in Z time will actually sometimes explode. It's also really good at dealing with trash Zeds as well, so it's basically good for a bit of everything. Although it's still not very practical. Like the minigun, it is a bit expensive, it is a bit heavy, and for some reason it takes absolutely ages to reload. It's an okay boss weapon, but to be fair, it's just not that great. There's better demo weapons you can use for the boss, like the RPG, Kaboom Stick, and it's also not really a great save me weapon either, because again it does have slow movement speed and you do reload really slowly, so it's just not very practical. Number 18, the riot shield and the Glock 18. This is a really good trash clearing weapon, and it's also a really good save me weapon as well, because you can basically block incoming damage. Although you don't completely block damage, you do get a few more hits before dying. Although it's not really the best large Z killer, but I'll give it some points for killing a Scrake, because it does do that quite well. It's also not really very good with bosses either. To be fair, there is just better things you can use, like the HRG nail gun, which does a better job. The riot shield isn't very practical either, because it basically blocks like half of your screen, so you can't really see anything on the other side, so you could end up getting stuck really easily. Although you can sort of use it as a save me weapon, but it doesn't completely save you. That's the only problem. Number 17, the Corruptor Carbine, and for me, I don't really like this weapon. It just feels really awkward to use. It's basically a cross weapon between the medic and the sharpshooter, and depending on which perk you use, it can be good or bad. The Corruptor Carbine is a good save me weapon though, because it does have an alt fire that releases healing gas, and it is a pretty good trash clearer as well, because the healing gas again can poison Zeds in the area, and it is good for taking down large Zeds, especially on sharpshooter when you have rack 'em up ability. But in terms of practicality, I just don't like it for either perk. The medic again has better weapons like the Hemogoblin, the sharpshooter has better weapons like the M14, the FN FAL. It's just awkward overall to use. It feels clunky, slow. Number 16, the Thermite Ball. Basically shoot like these balls of fire that basically erupt into flames. It covers a large area, which basically is good for clearing trash Zeds. And it is a pretty good save me weapon as well, because the fire can burn all of the smaller Zeds. Although it's not very good with bosses and larger Zeds, and that's because Firebug isn't really a perk that's good with large Zeds. And also the fire does take a while to kill some Zeds as well. It doesn't exactly kill them very quickly. So as good as it is with medium to small Zeds, it's not very good with bosses or large Zeds. Although with Hans, you can actually kill him quite quickly because he is vulnerable to fire. Number 15, the MG3 Shredder. This is an alright boss weapon. It's good, but it's not great. I still prefer the assault rifles, just because I feel like they pack more of a punch. A bit like the M208. It is a pretty good trash clearing weapon. The MG3 has a big magazine, has lots of ammo, which means you can clear through crowds quite quickly, and it also makes it a good save me weapon with the alt fire and the main fire mode. However, for practical use, I wouldn't really use it. It's a bit expensive in my opinion. The alt fire does suck as well. With the alt fire, it shoots in a cone formation, and it burns through ammo really quickly, and for me it just doesn't really do that much damage. It just feels really weak. It's also not great with larger Zeds as well, but it is pretty good with Scrakes, which is why I would recommend the M208, because it is good at dealing with flesh pounds. Coming in at number 14 is the Famous, and this is a really good trash clearing weapon. You can basically use the burst fire to clear crowds. You've also got a shotgun alt fire, which is good for close range. It's a really good boss weapon as well. It's good for dealing lots of damage, and again it is quite practical because you do have a shotgun alt fire, not to mention you've also got a scope for aiming long range. However, it's not really a save me weapon. You can sort of use the alt fire to get out of bad situations, but then again I prefer the MG3 because it does have a bigger magazine. It's also not very good with larger Zeds too, which is why I would recommend the M208 because it has explosive rounds, but it is good for trash clearing and just general practical use. Coming at number 13 is the Compound Bow. It's a really good boss weapon with rack 'em ups. It's also a really good large Zed killer because again you have rack 'em ups which do a lot of damage. Not to mention the sniper ability also allows you to crouch and get a lot more damage out of it. It is quite practical as well, the weapon, because it allows you to pick up arrows. You got a bayonet. You can even use the alt fire, which basically changes your arrows to ice, which is good for freezing. However, it's not very good for trash Zeds or clearing out big crowds. It's not really a save me weapon either, because when you get stuck you're kind of screwed unless you stay a distance and snipe them off. Number 12, the Blunderbuss. This is a really good trash clearing weapon. Your main fire mode shoots an explosive that is good for dealing with larger Zeds and even smaller Zeds. You've actually got a shotgun alt fire, which is good for dealing with Scrakes, and it is very practical because again it has different fire modes and it does reload quite quite fast as well, which is quite good. Although for me, I wouldn't really use it as a boss weapon. There is just better things like the RPG kaboom stick, and it's not really a save me weapon with the splash damage, which is why I would recommend the kaboom stick. Number 11, the gravity imploder. Again, this is another good trash clearing weapon. It basically groups Zeds together. It's good for keeping them at a distance when you get surrounded, making it a really good save me weapon. And it is quite practical in battle because it does have multiple fire modes which you can use to move Zeds around. Basically keeps them at a distance, prevents them from getting too close. Although for me it's not very good with bosses and larger Zeds because it does take too long to kill them, but apart from that, with trash Zeds it does work quite well. And now we are getting into our top 10, and coming in at number 10 is the HV Storm Cannon. This is a really good trash clearing weapon because the headshots will basically chain from each Zed, which also makes it a good save me weapon because you can kill multiple Zeds at a time. So if you end up getting stuck in a corner, just keep headshotting and you'll basically get out. It's also a really good large Zed killer because again the headshots will chain. And it actually stuns some of them as well, which makes it really good for taking down larger Zeds. Although it's not very good with bosses, but it is pretty good with any other Zed. And for me, the HV Storm Cannon is not very practical because Zeds need to be grouped together for it to be effective, which is the only issue. Because if you're picking them off like when they're all spread apart, it's just not really going to be that effective. You're better off trying to group everybody together and then shoot. That way you can kill multiple at once, you don't burn through ammo. Number 9, the Bloodsicle. This is actually a really decent berserker weapon. It has a heavy and light attack, which makes it good for dealing with large and small Zeds. You've also got level 15 skill, basically allows you to do more damage with parrying. However, for me it's not really a save me weapon because you can still die quite easily. I much prefer the Ion Thruster because it has an alt fire that actually supports getting out of bad situations. And for me, melee weapons haven't always been like a very good boss weapon. I much prefer range when it comes to bosses, but apart from that, it's really good with any type of Zed. Number 8, the Mosin. This is really good with larger Zeds because you have rack 'em up ability, not to mention you can also crouch and get extra damage. You can also parry with the Mosin and you can also stab Zeds with your bayonet. It's pretty good with bosses as well. I've used it on boss waves and it does kill them quite quickly. Although for me it's not really a save me weapon. It does shoot quite slowly. It does have a very small magazine, which means you won't be able to get out in time from a bad situation in my opinion. It just fires a bit too slowly. You're better off using a semi-automatic rifle like an M14. Coming at number 7 is Rhinos. This is a really good boss weapon. Gunslinger has rack 'em ups, which makes it really good with any kind of pistol, and it is a pretty good save me weapon because you can basically bounce bullets off the ground, which is good for clearing crowds. Although the only issue is it's not very practical because when you bounce bullets off the ground it isn't very accurate. It's basically with the Rhinos you fire a bullet and it splits off into like 3 different sections, so trying to hit Zeds aren't always that accurate. But it is pretty good with larger Zeds, but you do have to get up close with them. But apart from that, it is good with everything else. It's good with basically any type of Zed and even bosses. But there is just better things you can use, like the Desert Eagles, the 500 Magnums. Number 6 is the Frostfang. This is again really good with any type of Zed, large Zeds, trash Zeds. With large Zeds as well, you can freeze them in place, which means you can strike them with the blade attack. You can even parry them with Berserker, which makes it very practical for getting more damage. It's also pretty good with bosses too, because it does a lot of damage. But for me, the Frostfang isn't really a save me weapon. It's only really a save me weapon for Berserker, because you can parry and get out of bad situations. Whereas with support, it doesn't really feel like a save me weapon. Although it does freeze Zeds, which gives you a little bit of time to get out, but it doesn't give you a lot. Number 5, the Ion Thruster. This is really good in terms of practicality. It's fast, it's responsive. It's also a really good save me weapon, because like I mentioned before, with the alt fire you can just blast anybody back, which makes it really good. It's pretty good with trash Zeds, and it's also really good with large Zed. You've also got your level 15 skill parry, which makes it really good for damage. However, for me, I don't really like melee weapons for bosses. I much prefer range, like I mentioned before. So I wouldn't really take the Ion Thruster for bosses, but I know you can do it. Number 4, the G36, the assault rifle. This weapon is really good because it has armor piercing rounds. You've also got a laser sight for picking off Zeds from short distances, or you've got a scope which is good for aiming long range. It's really good at clearing trash Zeds as well. It's a pretty good boss weapon too, because if you get the Abomination, you can easily destroy its armor plates. And it's also a really good save me weapon because it has a big magazine, which means you can easily tear through crowds and get out. However, for me, it's not the best with larger Zeds, which is why I do tend to use the HRG nail gun. It's just better with larger Zeds. But it is a pretty good scrape killer and good with any other Zeds. It's just not really a large Zed killer. And coming at number 3 is the dual Glock 18s. This is a really good weapon. It's basically almost perfect. It's good at killing larger Zeds because with Gunslinger you have a rack 'em up ability. It's very practical as well. It has lots of ammo. It's also full auto, which means you can easily get rack 'em ups. Really good with bosses again because of rack 'em up ability. However, it's not really a save me weapon in my opinion. It is good, but it's not really the best at save me situations. But apart from that, it is a nearly perfect weapon. And coming at number 2 is the Piranha Pistols. This is good at basically everything. It's very practical because you can parry and you can also slash with the melee attack. It's really good with larger Zeds because you got rack 'em up. Not to mention with Berserker's version, you got the parry ability. It's a really good trash clearer because the blades go through all of the Zeds. It's also a really good boss weapon because again you have rack 'em ups and you've also got the parry skill for Berserker. And this is what makes it a really good save me weapon, unlike the Glock 18s, because you can parry and get out of bad situations. And finally, number 1, the shotgun. And this might come as a bit of a shock to some people, but this weapon, when you look at it, is actually quite perfect. It's really good at killing large Zeds. It doesn't have rack 'em ups like the Piranha Pistols, but it is effective at taking down larger Zeds. It's also really good at trash Zeds. It is an excellent save me weapon because it has an alt fire, which is basically designed around save me weapons. Basically, you shoot out like an EMP that just stuns all the Zeds. It is very reliable as well because it's basically like the AA-12 but a lot smaller and packs more of a punch. And again, it's really good with bosses as well because of its high rate of fire, lots of ammo. And I much prefer the shotgun over the Piranha Pistols because again, it's designed for more of like a save me situation, whereas the Piranha Pistols can sort of save you but only on Berserker. But yeah, this is it for me. This was all of the Killing Floor 2 DLC weapons from worst to best. Did you agree with them? Did you not? Do let me know down below. If you had to do the same thing, what would you rank all of the weapons and why? But this is where I'm going to end the video. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, join Discord if you're new, and I'll see you in the next video.